you're going to find the information about our in-class assignment for today in this part of the evaluation sheet, number 1, and this is part of the instructions. You're going to find it on this particular playlist of videos. So it's better if you go right to the channel, Week 6 in-class exercise. So rather than looking at the Week 6 one, because there is a Week 6 playlist, look for the one that says in-class exercise. And if you go right to the channel, you click on the little icon with the chair on it. That will be up at the top. Now I noticed that some people still have some work to do on their fireplace. They didn't build into the wall. So the fireplace examples, those videos, are right down at the bottom of the videos, the playlists that are on the page when you open it up. So you can use one of those if you like, but we need to have a fireplace that's building into the wall. That was part of the exercise for last week. So when you go in there, it will walk you through, you'll find the videos, and it'll walk you through several stages of completing a drawing. You're going to start with a little quick sketch, a tiny, tiny little thumbnail that's going to talk about how to set up 2 vanishing points and do a little maquette so that you can enlarge it and be able to draw it without vanishing points on the page. So the whole hope behind doing many, many little studies like this is that eventually you'll know exactly where those lines go without ever having to plot points or a vanishing point or an eye level. You just know. And you're going to make a larger drawing based on your observations in this little tiny sketch. And then you're going to also need a little floor plan. Now, this first part of the video is going to talk you through shadows, but it's going to put this simple shadow underneath. We're more interested in this. We're more interested in a more interesting shadow. So follow the directions. You'll see there's one video that has me shading this in brown. It's a different color altogether. I don't know why. And it shows you how I worked out the shadows through. And after you get those drawn, try to get them all on one page like this, and a quarter sheet of your cartridge paper. Then you're going to put marker paper over top, same size, and you're going to clean it up. Use your ruler, your set squares or something to make a straight edge, and clean it all up. And put in your little floor plan in the corner, and the more interesting shadow, and just do hatching. No cross-hatching, just hatching. Put in some planking for the floor. You might have to go back here and look at these lines and see what shape they're taking when you do this as reference. And then start throwing in some vertical reflections. Now this is all helping you, of course, when you do this very thing for your third part of our second assignment, where I give you back your pencil drawing today, and you ink it in like this, thicker outside lines and thinner inside lines, and then you hatch the shadows. So there are shadow mapping videos for this, and there will be for your assignment as well. And then what you can do for the bonus assignment, you can render in gray, as this would be good practice for the upcoming part 3 of the second assignment. Or, if you like, you can render it in color. This is our funny little icon. You'll recognize it, I'm sure. So there are videos that show you how to think about color values. You don't have to use these particular colors either. You can choose whatever color of marker that you'd like to choose, and it'll walk you through how to relate the gray values to the color values. So that's an important step. But when we render in this course, we are only rendering in black and white if I'm grading it. But I'm not really grading this. It's a bonus mark, so it's not the same, considered the same thing. So you're free to try some color. Because I know some of you are colorists, and I'll never really get to see what you can do if you don't have some color to play with. The third part of assignment 2 is this now, that you're going to make a detailed line drawing inked in. You're going to ink it in, and you're going to render it in gray markers on marker paper. So first of all, though, you have to shadow map. And what I want you to do, and I'll show you in a video, is to go right back to your simple box form drawing, your grid drawing, and map the shadows simply there. They're easier to understand on the box drawing. Then, when you translate them onto your detailed drawing, you refine them. You'll make them look like the shapes that you're doing. For example, this simple box turned into a more descriptive shape than that. And you know where it's most important is on a floor plan, because you can see the seat is that high, the arm is that high, the back is that high. So it describes that chair better than just a square shadow underneath it. So all this information, they work so beautifully together, the elevations and the floor plans and the perspectives, to give us the most amount of information in the clearest, simple way as possible. For this, your third part of assignment 2, you can use your rulers for all of it. It will be an echo of what you did today in class, this part. So you're doing the very same thing. Do that first, and then you're going to render it. And there's video support for all of this. And you're going to do your hatching, but just do it with very skinny lines. In the video, I talk about this pen. It's not necessary. You can get away with a very skinny pigment liner. Use your ruler or straight edge to ink in. Make any adjustments to your perspective. If you left tracing paper on your work, I can point out some things that might need a little work. Otherwise, I'll try to describe it. And when you render, you're going to use the white of the paper, your 10, 30, and 50%, and show your light, halftone, and shadow values. Don't forget to leave the white of the paper, and you're going to make gradual values. So the way to do that is to get your paper wet. So do a lot of work with that first light marker before you throw in any of the dark. And that's probably sufficient. Just put a little bit and move it around so you'll see. I think people are getting into a little bit of trouble because they're not wetting the paper enough and they're not putting more of the lighter version. On your walls, don't go any darker than a 10%, maybe with a little bit of accent of 30. You don't want big black holes in your corners, but they are dark, see, but they're transparent. They just are. The top part of the wall. See how a square light will make a penumbra. It makes an arc. So on your walls, make that arc so that it's representative of the light. And ink your figure in, but use thicker outside lines and thinner inside lines, just the way that you originally made it. You need a black ink border. And you can add additional elements to convey a distinct atmosphere, so that might be fun. Add some plants, add some other things that you would like. Your drawings are smaller, your box drawings are smaller than your full sheet of marker paper, so what you can do is add space at the bottom. Once you get it rendered large like this, add some markers paper at the bottom and keep going. Keep going a little bit. You might make it like a vignette that isn't broken with a line. It's allowed to gradually dissipate so that it gradually tapers off. That's the best way to do it. And if you're leaving the white of your paper, it's really the only way to do it. Otherwise, it'll look blunted and stunted. We need room to invite the viewer in. So you need some room at the bottom. So you're going to put this rendered version on one side of the paper, and you're going to put your sketches on the other side of the paper. All of this is drawn freehand, and this is all cleaned up with your set square. If you're going to render it either in gray or in color for the bonus marks, then render right on top of this. That's why we're doing it on marker paper. Also, marker paper is beautiful. You can see through it. So render right on top of it. Don't make another version. So very similar to what we did last week. Put your marker paper rendering in the center. I like it horizontal in the middle, but you can place it however looks best for you. And don't forget a black border all the way around. Put your quick sketches on the back. If it turns out that you have more than 3 of these, for example, some people forgot to add something on this and they ended up with 2. That's okay, don't worry about that. However many of these it takes for you to get it right, you do. and then you put them on the back. And this is all worth 10 marks. This is what it would look like without any detail. So if we were just doing the simple box forms, we would see that the shelves create a shadow like this, and there's video support for that. And you see the arc, the penumbra. Don't forget, even if something's glass like this, you're kind of rendering it like a cylinder. And to make it look transparent, you need to see through it. You need to see a little bit of what's inside it. So anything you're doing with glass, remember to show a little bit the other side, that we can see it very faintly. And out the window, put a little foliage, something. Don't outline it necessarily, but you can make interesting shapes just with the shape of the nib of the marker. And then look at all your different textures you can add. So if that's tile, remember we looked at that chart last week that looked at how the whole industry of interior design, interior decorating, and architecture recognized what was what. Don't forget about this chart. Go back to that and have a look and see if there's something you can incorporate in yours. So the wood grain we're going to use. So here, didn't draw it in with the black pen. I did it with the gray marker. You can do that too. Maybe a 3 and a 1. If you have a hairy carpet, you just comb it with your pen. Put some dots. When you're looking at a floor plan, you're seeing the same value changes. So that this on a floor plan is from above. So you're seeing a very light top plane. But you make variations within it. And also what's great on a floor plan is to leave this little key line of white if you can. They're very tiny. You can also go back and put it in with a soft pencil crayon or a white china marker. But you see how the shadow supports the whole thing. It sets this up. And I didn't even bother to modify the shape of the shadow this time. It didn't really matter. It was there for that purpose, to set up the sofa. And you see how you render more darkly around the items, and then as it goes away from it, you do less and less. Sandpaper is a great tool. If you put that underneath your paper and do a rubbing, you know the way we used to do with pennies and things, you can use a soft white pencil or a soft black pencil crayon and pick up the texture. So this is all nebby from the sandpaper I put underneath. And here's an elevation, and I'll see the value has shifted. This now we're seeing the middle values of the front, and I set this up so that everything in the room was darker than the sofa, so that the sofa was really the focus of the whole thing. See how that little key line, that little highlight in the center, makes this look round. Don't forget, all these things break down to cylinders, all of these things. Now, if this got a little too dark, so I opened it up with a little pencil crayon. You can do that too. It helps a whole lot. And this, I put in a little texture in here with the sandpaper. The idea is that when you're taking this from perspective and you're also looking at it as a floor plan and elevation, the values still hold. You still do the same thing. Some of our markers dry out more quickly than others. It's because these are alcohol based, and the alcohol will evaporate as it does, and there's no vehicle to move your ink. So what you can do is you pull out the nib in your marker. Just pull it out. You can use a plastic bag or something to pull it out, and it might be a little stuck. If it's dry, it's going to be a little stuck. And then I've got this Copic ink, Copic markers, if you know them. And their inks are very much the same as what the Prismacolors are. The colors are about the same. Only problem is they number them. So this is C3, and this is a 30% gray marker. It should be. It isn't, but it should be. And all you have to do, once you get the nib off, is just, this would be better on a piece of plastic too, so you don't lose any of your ink from there. Put it in, and then squeeze it a couple of times. Don't overfill it. That's the only thing that can go wrong, is if you overfill it. So just try 2 or 3 squeezes, and squeeze a little bit on the nib, and then you're done. And this will last you a long, long time. Whereas buying a new marker every time, although you get a nice nib, a nice new nib, it really isn't as cost efficient. These you can get at Curry's. They always have them. And anywhere that they sell the Copic markers. If you're in Toronto, they sell them at Above Ground Art Supplies too. And they cost, one of these costs about $8, and I think a marker can run $6 or $7, almost $8. So, and the nibs last a long time, so there's no need to buy new markers each time.